Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome yet again to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. This morning, I watched Big B's video, and he ran 3 boats that he questions. Now, the first one was that little 21-inch catamaran. It's the perfect size, but the execution of the construction of the hull was not as precise as it could be. Let's just suffice it to say that. And then he ran his little carbon fiber Imperial pocket rocket. Now, this was a really early Big B design, and Big B's learned a whole bunch since he designed that, and I'm certain if he were to redo that, he'd make a couple of small but insignificant changes. Lastly was that little 13-inch hydro from the same manufacturer that makes the cat. Big B put a lot of work into that thing. I mean, the hull, when he got it, looked sort of like this. And so not only did he shave a ton of weight out of it, but he got it to look more like this. He put a lot of work into that thing. Just an awful lot. So the summation of my discussions, I thought Big B had that bigger Atlas, but it might have been somebody else. But it's the same, chop strand, spray laminated stuff that's not very precise. And in the larger Atlas I saw, the wood looks like it was either die crushed or cut with a chainsaw. It had a transom and a couple of doublers, but they weren't very good. So my personal advice, if you're going to buy from that company, be advised that their products take a lot of work to get right. This didn't take much. This has actually taken more than this, but that's, there's no way around it. So let's get right into this. If I have time today, I'll sand it out. There's still a couple of little bits of seam here I need to take off. I've cleaned up the seam, so I'll shoot the first coat of primer on this and see what we're dealing with. I can start priming it whilst I'm waiting for Speedmaster to send me the stuff. It's coming on a slow boat. So here's where we are on this little guy, and you can see just how much I'm having to add to these inside edges to get them to work. It's quite a bit. So this still has a little more work. What I'm trying to do when I do this is, with my angled sanding block, I'm trying to build up the upper edge here and establish that as a straight line, and then I can come in with, I use a credit card as a spatula and just smear the epoxy on and use the inner line here and this new line that I've established to fill into. And you can see it gets better as you go along. The earlier stages, things are kind of wobbly, but it cleans up. So we're getting there on this, and let me tell you something. This Shinola is sharp. I mean, it's cut your fingers sharp. It's F104 leading edge sharp. You're going to have to drape canvas on it. Okay, next, my cooling tube. Here's the plan. This will I do a proctological exam with this, and this is going to go in, and I will cut a hole here that I can slip this in, and I'll have a hole cut through here. And once everything's said and done, I'll put a bunch of doublers on that. And then this, because of the way it's going to have to go in, the hole's going to be pretty big. And then I'll just fill the hole up with epoxy and Cabosil. So I want this ride surface pretty close to being right on before I butcher it and add this. So there's my cooling arrangement. Nothing inside the rather cramped quarters. Okay, next. One of my viewers asked me about the skeg strut that's on the dummy outboard for this thing. And unfortunately, what's on there is a unicorn. And they were made by Fuller's Fast Electric, maybe 20 years ago. So, and they were hard to find back then because most struts didn't have a skeg. So, you may not be able to find that. However, these Octura struts, they're not CNC machined, they're die cast. And they'll polish up a really nice. These are actually surprisingly good parts. It's a little thick. Here, you could thin that down if you want or build whatever you want, because this is probably 3/32 thick. But if you need a strut with a skeg, now here's the deal with Octura. I used to deal with them often back in the early 2000s. And the internet existed in the early 2000s, but Octura resisted, and may still be resisting, the internet. And so everything was done by mail. They would mail you a catalog once a year. You know, you get your free catalog from Octura once a year, and you'd have to order parts. You'd have to, put a slip in a slip of paper with your order on it in an envelope with a check and send it to them. And a while later, your parts would arrive. Kind of what we did in the old days before the internet. A lot of you kids wouldn't even understand that. Now, I don't know if Octura is still in business, so let's make some assumptions. Steve is still getting new props from them. Steve is still getting new drive shafts from them. Steve may even be getting struts from them. So my guess is Octura might still be in business, in which case, if you want to buy parts directly from the manufacturer, Steve charges the same as the manufacturer does, so you won't save any money, but you could find additional parts. But I suggest to somebody from the boat gang send Octura a letter and saying, hey, can I still buy parts from you? Because you can get a strut with a skeg on it. And I'm going to show you guys. Are you ready? I don't have the decals for it, but I'm going to show you anyway. Boom! There's the motor for the boat. Now, red, I'm doing a Ferrari theme. And I've ordered some chrome decals that say Ferrari in little, like 3/32 high letters. The little Ferrari logo where the top bar of the F goes all the way up to the I and ends in a dot over the I. It's a cool little logo. So down here it's going to say Ferrari in little small little chrome letters. And right here, it'll have the Dancing Stallion logo, and that's it. Simple, tasteful. The Dancing Stallion, you don't need a whole bunch of bling. The Dancing Stallion says it all, because the name Ferrari in and of itself has a number of connotations, from crooked old Enzo cheating the U.S. team out of the championship at Le Mans, or building race cars. Did you know the story of Lamborghini? I'll tell you the story of Lamborghini and Ferrari. I think Mr. Lamborghini either worked for Enzo Ferrari or was in a sidelining business, and I think Lamborghini made tractors. And he got really upset that Ferrari was using Lamborghini tractor clutches in their cars. And Mr. Lamborghini said, this isn't a sports car. You're using tractor parts in it. This isn't fit for a gentleman. And how some Italians can kind of go at each other. And so they developed this little feud between themselves. And Mr. Lamborghini said, okay, I'll show you how to build a sports car fit for a gentleman. And he went off and built Lamborghinis. Now, that's roughly the story. I may have inadvertently or unknowingly changed a couple of details, but that's the overall thing. That Lamborghini thought Ferrari was a hacker and said, well, I'm going to do better. So there you go. Ferrari. It's a statement in and of itself. That's about all I have to tell you this morning. You know what? People always ask me about tools, and I have all these weird little tools. This is a bent piece of wire with a sharpened hook at one end. Sometimes when you get something up in a stuffing tube or a little tight area, this is just a ticket for getting it out. Or if you got a ball bearing stuck in there somewhere, just a wire with a hook, and then you kind of break it off and sand it a little bit of angle so you could scrape with it. So there's a cool handy tool. There you go, boys and girls. I've jacked my jaw, or what we used to say in the old days. Of all the things Dr. Jet's done, one of them was driving trucks, and you had to have the CB radio because you had to have your ears on looking for them bears. Anyway, Big B calls it, jacking his jaw. The truck drivers would call him ratchet jaw. That guy's got a ratchet jaw. Oh, I could tell you stories of what I've heard on the radio. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.